Hello, I'm Tony Cohen with the Menare Foundation, Inc., and I am your virtual keynote speaker today for the Gaithersburg History Project's Black History Fair. My apologies, I can't be with you in person today, but in this presentation, I will give a brief overview of the African American communities we're researching and share with you some inspirational stories along with some new discoveries that you may not know about. So the Gaithersburg History Project, Unique People and Places. This is a project that's been going on for a little over a year now. And the idea was to discover more about the origins of Black Gaithersburg and those communities that are currently in present day Gaithersburg limits. So this map shows the location of our communities that are in the study, starting with Brook Grove near Laytonsville, Prathertown and Stewarttown near Montgomery Village, Metropolitan Grove, formerly near the present-day Motor Vehicles Administration site, Quince Orchard near Kentlands, Emory Grove near Washington Grove, just east of Old Town Gaithersburg, and two extinct enclaves in the town of Gaithersburg, which are Froggy Bottom and Summit Hall. Sources that we have consulted for this project include local libraries and archives, online archives, both printed and unpublished manuscripts and interviews with local people who lived and or still live in these communities. So our first community is Brook Grove. This is located near Laytonsville. And as you'll see, it's spelled B-R-O-O-K without an E on the end. This is not a typo. This is actually the original name of the community. A little bit of confusion comes as the land on which it was established was part of a land grant called Addition to Brook Grove, and that brook has an E at the end and is from the Brook family of Sandy Spring. This site was founded by members of the Prather family and is often conflated with Prathertown, a separate settlement about 5 miles away. The community erected a church in 1871. The current church structure is from 1953. The site featured the church, a school, and a lodge hall with a general store, all comprising the 3 institutional pillars of Maryland's 19th century Black communities. Prathers, Claggets, Addisons, Jacksons, Butlers, Duffys, and some other families settled this location. One person of note is David Addison, a Civil War soldier whose tombstone is pictured here. This appears to be the same David Addison who served in Company C of the 23rd U.S. Colored Regiment. These were the first Black soldiers to engage in battle with General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. They were also the notorious Battle of the Crater during the Petersburg campaign. Next, we visit Pratherstown. Pratherstown Road, which you see here on the map, sits on the outskirts of Montgomery Village off of Whiteman Road and was settled by newly freed people from the Woodburn Plantation, pictured on the top right. One popular landmark, the Black and White Inn, pictured below, at the corner of Goshen and Warfel Roads, provided accommodation to Black travelers passing through the area in the mid-20th century. And according to one informant, it was also a rendezvous place for local lovers on the sly. One person of particular interest was Sarah Posey. She was a local midwife who bought the house, pictured bottom right, in 1916 for $103. She and her husband, John, ran a sawmill next door. Interestingly, both had been born in slavery and finally became homeowners 50 years after emancipation. The couple lived there until their deaths in the mid 1920s, and they had 13 children. Stewarttown is our next community. First, it should be mentioned that there are multiple spellings for this settlement on the records. The one at the top is correct. You can see other variants at the bottom. Names associated with the site include Stewarts, Frasers, Johnsons, Miles, Dorseys, Lucketts, and Chases. Founded by Blucher Stewart, formerly enslaved by nearby neighbor Eliza Orme. The settlement was established about 1870. Other community members were formerly enslaved by Nathan Cook, whose property also bordered Stewarttown. In 1968, the community resisted the county's urban renewal efforts as Montgomery Village housing began to pop up around them. They formed a citizens association to pool their land and oversee the construction of new and affordable housing while retaining original family-owned plots. Greg Wims, pictured here, grew up in Stewarttown until his family's property was razed in 1968. He still owns his family's land and is currently serving as a state delegate for District 39. And we're very proud of him. Next is Metropolitan Grove. Our fourth community is currently extinct. It was established after the B&O Railroad came through in 1873 and was adjacent to the Clopper community, an earlier Black settlement. At the turn of the 20th century, the Grove became a retreat for Blacks escaping the summer heat of DC, where they could rest and rejuvenate. Dora Dorsey, pictured here, was an influential figure in Metropolitan Grove, offering room and board to travelers. She also served as a teacher for local Black students, and in the 1930s worked for the Federal Writers Project. She was a poet and author and published a book of her works in the 1950s. Encroaching industrial development eventually dispersed the residents in the late 1950s through early 1960s. Quince Orchard, our next community, is located along Route 28 near the Kentland subdivision. It was first settled just after emancipation. Prominent families include the Greens, Hallmans, and the Neversons, among others. While land was quickly purchased for a church after emancipation, it wouldn't be erected for another 20 years. The site features currently a church and a school building, which doubled as a community hall. Both buildings stand today and are undergoing restoration. In 1968, 3 churches, one Black and 2 white, in the area, faced with the threat of shuttering their doors due to dwindling membership, decided to merge and form one congregation. This story is told in a recent documentary called Finding Fellowship. Ida Pearl Green, now I think 105 years old, is featured prominently in the film, which was produced and directed by her grandchildren, Keisha Davis and Jason Green, who's pictured with her here. The film aired on PBS and is a must-see for history lovers. Emery Grove is our next stop. Emory Grove was home to generations of entrepreneurs and was a model for self-Black reliance. A church, school, social hall, community store, and other social spots merged alongside a vibrant camp meeting grounds and a lighted baseball field which hosted Negro League teams. Abraham Lancaster, a free Black farmer, purchased land here during the Civil War and is featured on the 1865 Martinet and Bond map to the top left, which listed landowners by name who paid a small subscription fee to be included on the map. Lancaster must have been doing well to afford such a rare distinction for a Black landowner. Lancaster's owned part of the Flower Hill tract and eventually donated land to form Emory Grove. Summit Hall is our next to final stop. Summit Hall was the seat of the DeSelem family and still stands at today's Boer Park in Gaithersburg. To the rear of the property, behind the current location of Gaithersburg High School, sat a small enclave of Black families, including Johnsons, Neals, and Normans. There is no record of this enclave having any institutions or businesses. For school, worship, and burial, residents went to other Black communities. For goods and services, they patronized businesses in the town center of Gaithersburg. For work, they were employed at Summit Hall and on surrounding farms as laborers. One standout resident was Rachel Johnson, a washerwoman and mother of 8 per the 1860 census. After the war, she is found living in the same location, but with her husband joining the fold. Following the Civil War, Rachel won legal action for a complaint she filed with the Freedmen's Bureau to reclaim unpaid wages owed to her son by a local farmer and who he employed but failed to pay. Rachel's successful suit showed that a free Black woman could stand up to former slaveholders during a time when social expectations were being challenged and resisted by both sides. And our final community is Froggy Bottom. This was established around 1930 on land owned by the Asbury Methodist Village. The photo, bottom left, shows a view of the former Bottom site along Park Avenue. The wooded area is where the housing used to be, and it was called Froggy Bottom because it was a low, wet area with frogs and a stream where these houses had been constructed. Family names include Frasers, Mileses, Chases, Waters, among others. Community members work nearby businesses as well as government jobs. No institutions, however, existed here. Residents attended school and church in nearby Emory Grove. To the right is a photo of James and Mary Miles, Mary Stewart Miles. And they are pictured here in the 1930s from a Gaithersburg High School yearbook. Misidentified in the yearbook, their true identities were unknown until we interviewed Maurice Miles, their grandson, who's about 84 years old at the moment. And he corrected the record. Due to endemic racism of the time, Blacks were often referred to by first names or nicknames only by the white majority. Okay. And probably my favorite, or what I think is one of the most interesting stories that's been discovered during this study, is that of an enslaved African family brought to the area in the 1770s, who attempt to escape upon arrival, according to this runaway notice. The project has located their place of enslavement. We've discovered the name of the ship that brought them to Maryland, and we are piecing together their story so as to locate their descendants. I look at their resistance to enslavement as being emblematic of Gaithersburg's Black history legacy, with each of the communities raising the bar for ensuing generation. I leave you with these key takeaways. Many of these communities that emerged after slavery were already formed on farms and plantations prior to emancipation, and only revealed themselves to the world once freedom came. Many of these communities were kinship communities and were formed by intricate family connections, which exhibits the continuity of family through both good times and bad. And finally, self-reliance and ingenuity allowed successive generations to thrive. We are seeing the fruits of their labor in communities and community leaders here in Gaithersburg to this very day. The story does not end there. This is going to be an ongoing project, though the current phase is coming to an end shortly. The project is seeking out further funding to conduct community interviews with local members, descendants, people who still have the story in their family memory. We ask you to please reach out to us if you have a story to share or a question you want answered. And finally, thank you to the numerous informants and supporters who made this project possible. On behalf of the Gaithersburg History Project, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope the rest of this festival is eye-opening and informative. Thank you very much.